temple of unceasing prayer, believe that he's approaching there.
I was a member of Ananda Palo Alto for 3 years before I joined the choir. I became a member in 2001 and then joined in around 2004. I thought one had to be invited to join the choir. I don't know where I got that idea, but I would sit behind some of the choir leaders and sing quite loudly, hoping that somebody would notice me, and no one did. And then one day I broached the subject with one of the leaders, and they said, sure, come audition. And I learned that saying yes to life really doesn't mean waiting for an invitation. I had to follow my inner guidance and be proactive. And then life said yes back to me. So soon they asked me to join a small group where I was one of 2 sopranos. And Anaya who coached me a lot in those days, told me that Swami said that the melody, and that is usually the soprano, carries the consciousness of the song. So whereas before I was singing, just as a follower, I was now being challenged to sing with confidence and to really tune into the music so that I could transmit the message and the feeling of the song through my voice. To this day, I try to sing that way, always praying to Master and to Swamiji to sing through me. And it's a never-ending learning process. It has been so good for developing attunement. Swami said, if you'd like to know me, listen to my music. And I'd like to add to that listening to the people who have sung his music for many years is also a way to get to know Swamiji, and especially now that he's not in the body. So, for example, Chaitanya did my audition, and I felt honestly like I sang pretty badly. But he reported to the other choir leaders afterwards. He said, well, she's got the hardware, now we just have to program the software, which I thought was such a sweet way to say that I had potential, but I needed a lot of work still. And Anaya was the leader of our small group. I remember one time in rehearsal, we were apparently having a lot of trouble staying on pitch. And I say apparently because at that time I actually couldn't tell if we were on pitch or not. David asked her where she thought the problem was, and she said something like, well, it's the top line, but we'll get it with more practice. I didn't know what the top line was, so that statement really meant nothing to me. It was only much later that I learned that I was the top line. And I realized that she could have said, Satyana's off and bringing everyone else down. But instead, she really tuned into the fact that I was kind of fragile to criticism, and she said it in a way that wouldn't embarrass me. And now, after many years, I can take criticism, and it doesn't faze me. But at that time, I was kind of tender, and she really tuned into that. And with kindness and joy, just like Swami, she treated me with that respect. And that kept me singing. In May of 2010, I had a numerology reading with Frank Monahan. And he said, after looking at the numbers, the next phase of your life will be all about music on a global scale. And I actually remember laughing out loud and asking Frank if he really thought that he had added correctly, because music was such a tiny part of my life at that time. And he just said, the numbers don't lie, so just wait and see. And 2 months later, Bhagavati and Ramesha invited me to go down to Los Angeles to be part of the LA Joy Singers Quartet. And we opened for Swami while he lived there, and he was doing weekly talks that were streamed all over the world. And music has actually been a major focus of my life ever since that time. So I always find it amazing how accurate the numerology was. and how that was really meant to be. Before I went to Los Angeles, I went through a very difficult divorce with my first husband. I was so sad and sometimes angry, and the music was the one thing that would consistently pull me out of that sort of depression and that ditch. I remember one day I went to the post office to pick up a package, and it turned out to be my divorce papers. I got in my car and I wanted to cry, so I put on the Oratorio Christ Lives CD, and within minutes I was singing at the top of my lungs, and with every note my mood just got more and more elevated. I was really rising above that really difficult moment. And then I got to my next stop, which happened to be East West Bookstore in Mountain View. And when I got out of the car, I was walking along the street, not even realizing that I was still singing. I still had so much joy. And when I realized this is when I saw somebody standing in the doorway of East West, and I stopped, very abruptly, and I was kind of embarrassed. And then the person I realized was Edwin, one of my friends from Ananda Palo Alto. And he said, "Keep singing, Satyana. It makes me happy to hear you sing." So, this makes me cry. So that was just a really special moment where the joy, I was able to pay it forward. So what started out as kind of a really tragic day has become a beautiful memory. So in Los Angeles, our quartet, which was me, Bhagavati, Ramesha, and Peter Kretzmann, we had lots of fun and we had lots of challenges. So I initially thought I would be there for 4 months just to sing for Swami while he was there. But after 7 months, he sat us down and said, "I would like you to stay. And I would like you to take the music out beyond Ananda, sing for anyone who will listen to you, but especially try to sing in the New Thought churches because they are very receptive and open to our vibration." So my thoughts of going back to Palo Alto and resuming my former life were completely erased at that time because God had other plans. And we got to work trying to figure out how we would take the music out. And in Los Angeles, this is a really tall order because there is so much talent, amazing talent down there. And I felt honestly really inadequate and not up to the task. So my ego was really getting in the way. And I was worried about how I would sound and what people would think of me and think of us. So one day we went to audition for Agape, which is a huge New Thought church that brought in performers every week for their Sunday services. And on this day, we were number 11 in the audition lineup. And every performance before us was really top quality, very amazing, truly wonderful musicians. And as we waited, I was just getting more and more nervous. And by the time we sang, I fairly croaked through the whole performance with my part. And needless to say, we were not invited to sing for Agape. And afterwards, I felt quite mortified, really. But Bhagavati, Ramesha, and Peter were unfazed. It was an amazing moment. They were in good spirits, and I could see that it really didn't affect them. And we had done our best, and what had happened was just meant to be. And we had made a nice connection with the people of Agape. So they were just joyful. And we drove home just joking like we usually did and having fun. And it was just a really big moment for me to, they showed me the way out of self-concern. And that was by giving every performance to God. And I have really tried to be like them ever since. It's, still a work in progress, but that is my goal. Bhagavati and Ramesha were actually amazing trainers for me, and I feel very blessed to have worked so closely with them for so many years and continue to do so. They were extremely patient with me and just made everything really fun. So we had such a good time while we were all down there, and still continue to do so. So Swami's music has universal appeal. And one time while we were in LA, that became so evident. We had very few gigs lined up, and so we decided to go sing at an open mic at the Bliss Art House Cafe in Hollywood. So this ended up being on a very seedy part of Vine Street in Hollywood. And when we walked in, it was just really dark inside. And people were sort of sitting on the edges of the room against the wall in the darkest areas. And it just really did not feel like our vibration. In fact, I think Peter, when he arrived, he walked in, turned around and walked right out and said, "I don't think this is for us." And Dharmarajan had to take his shoulders and turn him around and say, "Come on, let's go in. We came this far. Let's do this." And so the other performers that went before us for this open mic were mostly comedians, and they were telling really raunchy jokes, like just jokes that nobody in our group really wanted to hear. So by the time we got up to sing, we were thinking, gosh, is anybody going to even be able to relate to our music? We really weren't sure, but we had decided to do this, and we were doing it for Swamiji, and so we went ahead. And when we got up, I felt pretty nervous, but Dharmarajan and Narayan and Dharmadevi had come with us, and they had planted themselves in the center of the room, and they were like light bulbs, just lighting up the entire place. So it was so wonderful to be able to share the vibration to our three really receptive people, but also that allowed us to kind of almost use them as a prism where the vibration went through them and out to the people who were sitting at the corners. And I think we sang "There's Joy in the Heavens," "If You're Seeking Freedom," and "Life is a Dream." So as you can imagine, these three songs were definitely different than the vibration that had come before. But to our surprise, afterwards, the MC said, "Wow, that was so great. It was so wonderful of you guys to sing. We really enjoyed it. And will you come back and sing for us again?" And so we did. We went back another time. And then after that, we started getting more gigs in New Thought churches. So we didn't go more than that. But another thing that he said to us was, "You guys are going to make it," which is a very big compliment in LA. And we were just very touched that even though they clearly weren't really used to the vibration that we shared, they were open to it. And we want to hope at least that it had an impact on them in that moment. So there are many more stories from LA, but fast forward, we were there for 3 years, and in 2013, Swamiji passed on April 21st, and I was already in bed, and around 11 p.m., Bhagavati came in and told me what had happened and said that all of us in the ashram were meeting downstairs to pray and to meditate. So I went downstairs, and I had always been rather shy with Swamiji. I don't know, I just never felt like I had the right thing to say. But after he passed, I felt really quite close to him. And that night, in that meditation, I just said, Swamiji, you no longer have a body, but I still do. And I would be honored to be your voice if you would like to sing through me. And I felt such a blessing that evening, and it really changed me. And after that, my voice started to improve. It became much easier to sing with an open throat. It became easier to hit the high notes. My voice became clearer. And of course, I was still getting wonderful coaching from Ramesha and Bhagavati. But I knew that Swami had really changed me in that moment because I was receptive to that. So ever since then, I no longer get as nervous. I would say about 95% of my nervousness is gone. And I still get a little nervous when I have to sing a lot of solos, like all the soprano solos for the oratorio, for instance, which I've done about 5 or 6 times. Usually that first solo is the challenging one, and then they get easier after that. But my nervousness has been diminished greatly because I no longer feel like it's me singing by myself, that part. I really feel like Swami is singing with me and singing through me. So it's a joint effort. And I feel very, very blessed by the music. It's so uplifting and has changed my life and my vibration in remarkable ways. So now I have been living up at the village. We all moved up to the village after Swami passed for various reasons. The music program needed Bhagavati and Ramesha up here. Peter had moved up here to take over his father's business, so I just essentially followed the band and came up here too, felt inspired to do that. And for the past 9 years, I have been living here and singing. And I have a different, job that I do for work and for my service at Ananda. But music has always been one of my very top priorities because it's really the only thing that Swami ever asked me to do. So I take it very seriously and feel it is just a great honor. So thank you for listening.